Deputy Foreign Minister Mr. Rabkov, Director Ms. Popova, distinguished participants, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. I am honored to address this third international conference on global biosecurity challenges, problems and solutions. I would like to thank the Federal Services for Surveillance on Consumer Rights Protection and Human Well-being and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Russian Federation for jointly organizing this important event. I commend the Russian Federation for its efforts to strengthen the Biological Weapons Convention, or BWC, and its strong support for the convention. As one of the convention's 3 depository governments, the organization of this conference demonstrates your continued commitment to the BWC. Ladies and gentlemen, when I attended the second Sochi Biosecurity Conference back in 2019, there was little inkling of how our global connected world was about to be shaken to its foundations. As Secretary General Guterres told the Security Council last year, the weaknesses and the lack of preparedness exposed by the COVID-19 pandemic provide a window onto how a bioterrorist attack might unfold and may increase its risks. More than 1 year on, with more than 3 million deaths, massive societal and economic disruption, and with many countries still in the grip of the pandemic, no one should any longer doubt that huge risks posed by biological threats, whatever their source. Confronted with such threats, the international community must act, and it is the role of the disarmament community to act to prevent the deliberate use of disease as a weapon. The backdrop to my remarks is the call by the Secretary General and many other world leaders for increased international cooperation to be the overriding response to COVID-19. In 2019, I referred to the Sochi spirit, which contributed to the adoption of the current BWC intercessional work program in 2017. The joint statement by the 3 depository governments and their subsequent joint working paper clearly demonstrated the value of international cooperation and dialogue. We need a renewed Sochi spirit to comprehensively address threats to global biological security. The primary tool at our disposal is the Biological Weapons Convention. The Convention has strong normative value as the widely supported and long-standing codification of the taboo against the use of disease as a weapon. States parties should reaffirm that any use of disease as a weapon, whether against humans, animals, or plants, is repugnant to the conscience of mankind. But we need to go much further. As it approaches its 50th anniversary in 2025, and particularly on the eve of the 9th Review Conference next year, I urge all 183 states parties to use the Review Conference to make serious and substantive improvements to the Convention's operation. The experience of the past 18 months has taught us that business as usual is no longer an acceptable option. In order to uphold and reaffirm the Convention and prevent it being undermined or losing relevance, states parties need to be ambitious at the Review Conference. The UN Office for Disarmament Affairs, through the BWC Implementation Support Unit, is fully committed to supporting a substantive outcome. Ladies and gentlemen, such an outcome is not a foregone conclusion and will require 2 things. First, political will around the need to substantively and urgently improve the operation of the Convention. This is why renewing the Sochi spirit is so important. History shows us that advances can be made even in challenging circumstances. I therefore call on states parties to devote high-level political attention to the review conference. I welcome the recent statement by the foreign ministers of the Collective Security Treaty Organization in support of the strengthening of the Convention. And second, success at the review conference will require well thought out and thoroughly discussed proposals. Fortunately, the current intersessional program has facilitated the development of several initiatives deserving of serious attention, and I commend states parties for their efforts. Recent attention has focused on Kazakhstan's proposed International Agency for Biological Safety, France and India's joint efforts to establish an Article 7 database, and the work by Germany, the Russian Federation, and others on the Science and Technology Review Mechanism. The United Nations Institute for Disarmament Research, or UNIDIR, has just published a very useful report on the latter topic. Other long-standing proposals, such as on improvements to the confidence-building mechanism systems, codes of conduct for scientists, voluntary transparency measures, and an institutional mechanism for Article 10, are all similarly worthy of consideration. Our hosts today, the Russian Federation, have proposed the establishment of mobile biomedical units based on their well-developed national capabilities. No topic should be off the table in the quest to strengthen the Convention. Its clear institutional deficit should be urgently addressed with the additional time and resources devoted to science and technology, international cooperation, assistance, response and preparedness, and national implementation. These proposals are a sign of a convention that is very much alive. Instead of focusing only on past disagreements or the status quo, I would strongly encourage states parties to look beyond the review conference and find common ground on how the convention should be functioning on its 50th anniversary and beyond. Ladies and gentlemen, the BWC is not the only element of the biological disarmament and non-proliferation regime. The international community has multilateral tools to prevent such catastrophic outcomes, which should be used to their full potential. The pandemic has disturbingly demonstrated the scale of death and disruption that may result from the weaponization of high-consequence pathogens by non-state actors, including terrorist groups. Resolution 1540, adopted unanimously by the United Nations Security Council in 2004, has become a vital component of the global non-proliferation architecture. While the BWC forms the foundation of the international biological disarmament regime, Resolution 1540 represents an important component. In addition to its broad scope covering all weapons of mass destruction, the resolution is also unique in that it requires states to implement a wide range of effective domestic measures to ensure proper control of materials related to these weapons. These steps include effective export controls and measures to account for, secure, and protect such materials. The third part of the biological disarmament and non-proliferation regime is the United Nations Secretary General's Mechanism, or UNSGM, established by the General Assembly and endorsed by the Security Council. Currently, the UNSGM is the only instrument that provides a framework for an international investigation of possible use of biological weapons. The UNSGM does not cover investigation of suspected development or production of such weapons, but only the alleged use. It is not a standing mechanism. Instead, member states nominate experts and laboratories to a roster that may be called upon to support a UNSGM investigation. My office serves as the custodian of the UNSGM, maintaining the roster of experts and laboratories and strengthening the readiness of the United Nations to carry out such investigation in a scientifically sound and politically independent manner. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the Russian Federation for the recent update of its nominations of experts and analytical laboratories to the UNSGM roster, which is composed of capacities from truly diverse background nominated by 59 member states. When discussing the much-needed enhanced cooperation to strengthen international biological security, I would urge states to recall the importance of strengthening existing instruments such as the UNSGM and to avoid any efforts which could undermine them or fragment and weaken the existing international regime. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to conclude by wishing you all a successful conference. Global biosecurity efforts have not had the attention they deserve, but it is my firm belief that we have a collective responsibility to provide them with the utmost support. Thank you very much for your attention.